So this is like part two of my Amazon tattoo machine lies, part two of two. So I did another video, like these are Swash Drive tattoo machines. Like these are basically tattoo pens before pens came out. And I've always said for inexpensive tattoo machines, these are probably some of the best you can buy. You can get like, usually you can get like a really good wide range of like stroke length adjustments on these. A lot of people don't realize it. I've seen a couple of videos about these, and obviously people didn't realize you can adjust the stroke length on them, but basically this little bearing in the front of the machine, if you unscrew this and pull this bearing back, this will just say it's the armature bar, even though it's one single piece. But if you pull this back, well, toward you, which actually I guess it would be pulling it forward, but basically the bigger the gap you get in between your armature bar and the actual frame itself, you can get like, really wide range of stroke length or short range. So these two, I mean, I've had these literally for years. One of them, this was actually the first rotary machine I ever bought, and I use this for a liner now. And I liked it so much, I bought another one. So anyway, you can see that this has like a shorter gap basically in between the frame and the armature bar. So this is like my liner. This is my shader, and I bought both of these from a professional tattoo company, even though they weren't super expensive, even from coming from a professional company. They're called Swash Drives or jackhammers. But as you can see, like, they have like regular screws and stuff on the back here, for these like saddles, they're called. And when I first got interested in Amazon was because I saw this hype about those Dragonfly knockoffs that got me curious. So I found another one of these on Amazon, which I bought. You can obviously see like they have these little weird eyelet kind of like things right here. I've undid this little bearing right here, and you can see there's like a huge gap in between like the frame and the armature bar. Again, when I bought this, again, Amazon's claiming liner or shader. So basically this is as far back as it can go without this bearing literally falling off the little post that it's on. Even if I were to move it up or all the way back, it literally makes no difference in the stroke length. So I got this white armature bar nipple on it, so hopefully you'll see what I'm talking about. You can see there's almost no gap in that whatsoever, so that's probably about a 1 millimeter stroke length. So basically this tattoo machine is like unusable as it is. What I'm kind of waiting for is like if a motor dies on one of those other ones, I'm just going to take this whole back section off, and replace it with like the good one, and a good bearing, and hopefully that'll make a difference. But again, I can't even stress enough, if you don't know what you're doing, like, don't just take their word for it. You also notice on this, I did another video on these too, but I only have these are called New Platinum rubber bands, and one of these makes up the weight of a 2 number 12. So like for rotary sometimes, because there's not a lot of space on them, so I'll just use one of these. But anyway, I just wanted to kind of show you, that's all the way back, and there's literally no stroke length, and it's basically non-adjustable the way it is. I mean, I've pulled that backwards and forwards. These little screws right here, they claim they're damper screws. They don't really seem to do anything but fall out if they're loose, so I just keep them tight. But yeah, again, so granted this was like I think 20 bucks or something like that on Amazon, but as of right now it's unusable unless like I say, I'm just kind of waiting in case one of the motors do go on one of these. I'm gonna strip like this whole back section off and try to put it on that, or just the motors themselves are pretty easy to replace. You might have to cut a little bit of the frame just to get the wires out of it, but obviously it's a good motor. I mean, it seems like it's a pretty strong motor, but the problem is there's literally no stroke length whatsoever in it. So as of right now, it's unusable. If I were to try using that as it is, like, I would literally just be cutting somebody up. So if you don't know any better, you know, like I say, learn that stuff, you know, learn how to, your proper stroke lengths and stuff. And again, in a nutshell, it's the stroke length. The stroke is basically your needle moving backwards and forwards, and the length is in between your armature bar, you know, when that's like moving. One thing about these too that I like is you don't even really have to run them to be able to tell like your stroke length. You can just kind of like spin these bearings and it'll move back and forwards, you know. So but yeah, like I said, these weren't really too super expensive. I think I bought these from Friction Tattoo Supply way back in the day. And I mean, this one itself or whatever is probably got hundreds of hours on it. Outlasted my $700 Cheyenne Hawk. So I'm not saying that you have to spend a lot of money on good quality tattoo supplies either, but you know, don't always take companies that aren't professional tattoo suppliers. Don't take their word for stuff like Amazon, eBay, you know, stuff like that. Because if you really don't know what you're doing, you know, again, if I were to try using that, I would just cut somebody up with it, whether I was using it for a liner or a shader. So yeah, I mean, the stroke length is everything. That's how the total performance is going to make your difference between your line work and your shading, certainly your color packing. So, you know, learn it. And again, anybody out there getting these 3.5 millimeter non-adjustable rotaries, you're not really learning a whole lot on them, and they're not really that good for anything except like gray wash, you know what I mean? And I know some people just swear by them. I don't even like cartridges, honestly. Like, they work so much different than just one needle on the bar, you know. I don't know. I'm just not a big cartridge fan either. Over the last 20-something years, I've seen so much quote-unquote, you know, new high-tech tattoo trends and with equipment and stuff coming out. And, you know, personally, I mean, I do almost 90% of everything with coil machines, unless it's up by somebody's, like, ears or a place like that or whatever, you know, that the noise is a little uncomfortable for like the client. Then I'll try, you know, I'll use my rotaries or whatever. There's a couple of them that I have that I mostly use for color work that I know I can get more than, you know, or at least a 4 millimeter out of. But anything that's like a 3.5, I know I don't even bother trying to do color work with it, because I just end up, you know, it seems like I'm fighting with it. So unless it's real small color work and I can use like a round shader, because like even like a 14 round shader isn't quite as much area as like a 5 mag, so you would want like a lot of needles in a small area. So if it's a real small color tattoo, you know, I'll use it if I can use like rounds or something on it, but otherwise I don't even bother with like just my non-adjustable rotaries. So otherwise, these little swash drive, these jackhammers, I'm telling you, if you can get good ones, you know, from a decent company, they're awesome, like little fairly inexpensive tattoo machines. And I know now they have even like newer ones with the little needle bar stabilizer and whatnot on them or whatever, you know. They have like a more like a Gen 2 type of versions out now than these originals that I got. But anyway, I did another video on these. Feel free to check it out. And this is definitely it for me tonight. Again, I don't know if I'll see you before the holidays, but I wish you guys all great Christmas and a, you know, happy New Year ahead. Think Ink. See ya.